All right, welcome to the Journey to Pay Speaking Gigs podcast. I'm your host, Charles Clark, and today I have Mike Michalowicz. Mike, welcome to the show.
Charles, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited to dive in. Just to learn about you online to having a conversation. I'm pretty excited about this one. So
You're a stud, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So let the Thorough Tribe know, who is Mike.
Yeah. So who I am today is I'm an author. I've written 7 books. I'm a public speaker too. COVID did put a little slowdown in that business for me, but it's coming back now. Prior to that, I've been an entrepreneur. In fact, I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life. I just love writing books, particularly about the entrepreneurial journey.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of like sparked being an entrepreneur? Because that takes some different blood, right? It's not meant for everybody.
No, it's not. And like, I wasn't the kid who grew up like, oh, I had a paper route, or I was wheeling and dealing with other students. I had no entrepreneurial drive whatsoever. What did it for me actually was booze. I got my first job after college working at a computer store. I couldn't get a quote unquote real job, like what I really wanted. So I was working at a computer store, just selling printers and stuff. And one night I went out for drinks with another guy that worked there. I threw back a couple cold ones, and I'm like, I'm smarter than this guy that runs the business. And I got pretty boozed up, and I left this nasty message. I'm like, I'm starting my own computer company. And the next day, hungover, I asked for my job back. The boss said, F you. And I had to start my own business. I also, just to give some context, I was 23 at the time. I also had my first son and my wife. I had 3 mouths to feed and had to figure it out. And I'll tell you, fear is a great motivator. It gets you going.
Yeah. Flight or fight, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're in the fight then. You got to fight.
Yeah. I think just as humans, I think we got to understand we're more resilient than we think. I think we're going through COVID and just experience the unexpected and how we all made it through. That just shows like we can do beyond the survival mode of what most people are accustomed to. So thanks for sharing that story.
Thank you.
So tell me about your story. How did you get into speaking? You pivoted from becoming like this entrepreneur business side to, the entertainment aspect of business.
Yeah. So it's a very humbling story. We were talking about this off air. And so what happened, so just to give more context, I started that first company and struggled in the beginning, but I really fell in love with entrepreneurship, and I got it going. The private equity group came in and acquired the business. And I was like, wow, I just sold a company. This is unbelievable. I started another business in computer crime investigation, actually right when the Enron trial broke, and we got part of the Enron trial, put my business on the map, and we exploded, and a Fortune 500 came in and bought my business. But it was wonderful. But also, I thought I was hot shit. Like, oh my God, I am Midas. Anything I touch turns to gold. And I think the one upstairs had an alternative plan for me. This is my lesson. So I started a third business as an angel investor, and I sucked at it. I didn't know what I was doing. I really, that's just not a passion of mine, but I was like, this is what I have to do. And I blew all my money. As a result, it was so bad. I lost my house, lost possessions, lost everything except for my family. I came home to my wife. I had 3 children at this time, and I had to tell them, this was February 14th, which is Valentine's Day of 2008. So it's 13 years ago. And told my wife that we're losing our house because I didn't know what I was doing in business. And I was sobbing. I was so ashamed and embarrassed. My 9-year-old daughter, I told her, you can't go to horseback riding lessons. It cost $20 to do like a group session once every couple of weeks. Couldn't afford it. I was broke. And I'm sobbing that I'm so sorry, but you can't do this. She stood up and she ran out of the room. And I thought she was running away because that's kind of what I wanted to do. But she actually ran to her bedroom. She grabbed her little piggy bank. She was saving to buy a horse. She ran back to me. She puts it on the table. She goes, Daddy, I know you can't provide for our family anymore, but I'll do it. And I'm getting emotional right now. I was, man. Oh my God. It was a punch to the gut. I was so proud of her. I was so ashamed of who I was. That moment became a seed for me. And by the way, just to be clear, it wasn't like the next morning I woke up and said, oh, everything's resolved. I'm going to fix this. I started drinking a lot. trying to self-medicate effectively. I should have gone through counseling, honestly,
Yeah.
but it did plant a seed that I didn't understand what makes entrepreneurship successful. I was lucky a few times, but I didn't really understand the essence of it. I started writing about it for myself. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm going to turn this into books. And every book I've written, honestly, is to investigate something I really don't understand fully about entrepreneurship. And it
Right.
serves me. I hope it serves the people who read my books.
Wow. Wow. That's an amazing story. I think it's so humbling. And I'm curious to know, like for you, what was that? What was the silver lining? What was the hope behind that moment with your daughter? What did that do for you?
Well, a couple, realization is that at the end of the day, family is everything, or the people who love you. Sometimes it isn't family, but the people that you're surrounded by are everything, and to support them unabashedly. I also think it was an awareness about honesty. I wasn't being honest with my children. I wasn't being, or family. I didn't tell them that we're struggling. I was being honest with myself. I saw my bank account dwindling. Like, didn't really even understand it. Logically, I did, but emotionally, I didn't accept it. And when I got to
Yeah.
that point, that day, it was brutal honesty. There was no more clouding my judgment or any of that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, it opened my eyes. It's funny in retrospect, as I've looked back at aspects of my life, and I think, Charles, if you did the same for yours, these lowest moments, sometimes, in my case, many times, were actually the greatest gift because
Yeah.
they opened my kind of tunnel vision much broader, and I could see opportunity. I never want even my worst enemy to go through an experience like that. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm so grateful that I went through that experience because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that I'm learning is that life, life throws us a lot of things, right? And sometimes people say like life happens to me or life happens for me,
Yeah,
and I believe like it's simply a choice that we have. Like we can decide what that
totally.
life experience cost us. Was it happiness, or was it on the negative spectrum, or did this give me some type of gratitude, appreciation? Those are the choices that we have. And I think the more we lean to more the more optimistic viewpoint, I mean, and optimism doesn't mean like you're ignorant of things that's happening,
No,
but optimistic, like you're pursuing. I don't want to stop. I want to still be resilient and achieve my goals and make something of myself or make my family proud. All of those things. So like I relate to you so much in so many different aspects. I wish we had more time to dive into that. But you pivoted from the business side
yeah,
to the speaking realm.
yep.
And I'm curious to know, like for you, was there any fears that you had when you started to speak, or was there any limiting beliefs that you had to overcome?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, first of all, I thought, like, would anyone want to hear me speak? Like, why?
Yeah.
Um, so it's what I have to offer even desirable. And then the stuff I'm sharing, it's stuff that I think maybe everyone already knows. So now am I just telling them stuff they know? And like, this guy sucks, and they're gonna throw tomatoes at me. And the start was difficult because in the beginning, those beliefs are kind of confirmed. When I did my first speaking gig, it was just to a few college students because I reached out to a college club and said, "Can I speak?" Uh, but my second gig, I'll never forget this one. This was devastating, or it was maybe my second, but it was in the first year. I
Yeah.
spoke at UCI, which is University of California in Irvine, California, and I reached out to this club, this entrepreneurs club, and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in the area. I'd love to speak at your to your club if you want to have an event. Like, this is amazing. We have all these different business fraternities and clubs. We can get a couple hundred people here." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I felt I've arrived.
Yeah.
This is no lie. There's no lie. I show up. There's one kid sitting there, and this is about. I showed up, 20 minutes early just to make sure I got the room set up. And
Right.
he's sitting there. He's on his phone. He doesn't even look up. He goes, "Are you a speaker?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh." He goes, "There's a fraternity party happening tonight." He's like, "I don't know if anyone's going to come." And I'm like, "What?" Dude, no one showed. It was just this kid. He was the
Oh,
facilitator. He had to be there, and he was pissed because he
yeah.
wanted to be at the party. I I I decided in that moment deliver the effing speech to an
Mm.
empty room with one person not looking up, tears, like literal tears coming down at times. Like, this is embarrassing beyond belief.
Wow.
But at the end of it, I remember saying to myself, like, "You did it. that's the worst speech. Like there can never be a worse speech ever. You got that one done now. And I've had some bummers since, but never ever that bad again.
Yeah, yeah. I think so many new speakers, there might be at that same place where
Yeah.
maybe no one shows up to the party. Maybe there's two or
Yep.
three or five,
Yeah.
but the way you show up in those moments when you don't want to show up is so important to create those big moments in our life, so that when we getting on the stage and now the 150 and now the 500 happens, but you got to learn to do the things behind the scenes,
You
because if you
have to.
never do it behind the scenes, you're never gonna get the spotlight to do it in front.
Amen. You know, my favorite speakers are comedians, because what I love about
Yeah.
them is these are people that can go on the stage. They don't have any PowerPoints, nothing. They speak for 60 minutes, 90 minutes straight. They're performers, really, is what it is. And that's, I think, a great speech
Right.
is not a speech; it's a performance.
Mm-hmm.
What I admire about those people too is you see the thing, you know, the Netflix special, but the reality is they were in some, you know, barroom scenes doing their gigs, testing stuff out, flopping. Even the famous folks, even the big names, it's not like they nailed their comedic routine the first go around. They're testing and trying things out. The best speakers I've seen consistently don't always do the big platforms. They're always practicing the new stuff on the small ones to see what's working and not. And over time, they assemble this amazing presentation.
Yeah, so true. Like I'm always in my living room. I remember one time I went down to the beach and I was like, "Hey, excuse me, ma'am. Like I didn't know the lady. Would you mind listening to one of the first points in my speech?" And she sat down in the sand and she was like, and she gave me some pointers. I'm like, "All right, cool. You got to get it in the way you're gonna get it in, right? Like because I don't want to get to a big stage and it don't land right, and now I'm humiliated." And now that brings down my value as a speaker. I'd rather do those little things behind the scenes to
Totally.
create.
Totally. You know, so what I do is I have my core presentation on like 4 different subjects. And when I'm with a practice audience, if you will, small venues, stuff like this, I will test out 5 to 10% of the speech with brand new stuff to see what works and what doesn't work. And some of the stuff that I think would kill it sucks. It falls totally flat. And stuff that I think is kind of stupid sometimes is like the big hit. It's weird. In fact, I even have one audience, it's a chamber, who, as I've been very blessed as my books have grown popularity and so forth, I get inquiries for speaking. But I said to this one group, I said, would you be willing to be my test group? Like every time I come up with something new, brand new, I'll tell you. And if you want, I'll come down and present it to you. And they've had me now for 10 years. Just they're the first to see the gross kind of rollout of my first presentation. And they give me critical feedback, saying this was funny, this was impactful, this made no sense, this was stupid, you know. And videotape yourself, right? And videotape yourself. There's nothing more humbling than watching yourself, you know, slump shoulders at a point or saying the word 1,000 times in a row when I didn't realize I was doing it. Tape catches all.
My word is the I guess my filler word would be right. I use that word sometimes.
You're right.
But I feel
I'm with you. I'm with you. Because as certain like this is just natural, but for the audience, it becomes very peculiar. There's another speaker I see, he says his filler word's okay. He's like, we're here, okay? We're there. And the audience is like, no, it's not okay. You know?
Use it one time, but don't like
one time.
Every 2-3 minutes is like, all right, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Very difficult for an audience to consume that.
Tell me one memorable speech you gave on stage and what happened that day.
So it's turned into now my biggest speech. So I spoke to an event. It's called PPA, Professional Photographers Association. There were 600 people in the room. And I was presenting on a book I wrote called The Pumpkin Plan. Just kind of the conclusion of this is I am now their keynote speaker for 10,000 people this December. I'm in Washington, D.C., their annual conference, because of this presentation. Well, I'm speaking and, you know, I use some jokes and stuff, and I know certain ones that just kind of land and the audience enjoys it. But this one woman just was front row. She couldn't stop laughing. And during presentation, you got a presentation is when it's canned. You've done it so many times that you actually are kind of observing yourself present it. It becomes fluid
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it's very rough. Then it becomes very kind of cloned and weird. And then there's this freedom where it's just, you got it down.
Right.
Cold.
It's just being, I'm there.
Yeah. And I was
Yeah.
boom, and I see this woman laughing and I'm like, okay, let's have some fun here. And I just kind of, I start engaging with her and get her laughing. I got a microphone on her. So she's laughing so loud and snorting and stuff. And I'm kind of riffing with her that the whole audience can't stop their laughter because it just, the funny sounds coming out of her. And at the end of that presentation, they said, "Oh, Mike, the speaker guy is going to do a little breakout room for anyone that's interested to do some questions." 600 people try to get in the breakout room that was suited for about 25 people. That's the best feeling when people are crunched in, trying to look in. It just was. It was just great. It was just a great experience.
Man, that's incredible. I always love hearing stories of what was memorable for somebody, and most of the time when people answer that question, it's always something to do with the audience, not what they said, but the feeling that the audience gave them. And I think that's the thing that allows us to live that legacy and be mindful of, like, what am I doing this for? Is it to put on a show, or or is this to build a connection with people? Like, I think that's true speaking, building connection.
There was another speaker said to me, he goes, never forget this. You are speaking to one person in that audience. Even if it's a dead flat audience, there's someone in there that needs to hear what you're saying. Speak to one person, regardless if there's 10,000 in the room or there's literally one. And someone in there, regardless of the audience's, because some audiences, the energy is so high, you just can't help but bring the best of you. Other times it's a dead audience. It's like, oh God, this is hard. But if you're speaking to that one person, I think you'll bring the best of yourself every time.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Give me two sentences of this. Two sentences. What would you tell someone who is starting out and they're looking to break free in the speaking industry?
So your message is important. I think you have to see the value in that. Secondly, is speak. How would I say this? Let's just say speak frequently, meaning speaking is not a one and done endeavor. It's a lifelong endeavor. So that message you're sharing, do it frequently, because it may be that first audience, or maybe the 500th audience is the one that really needs to hear it. So your message is important, and be relentless. Yeah,
love it. Mike, before we go, where can I try to find you?
Oh, real simple. My nickname is Mike Motorbike because no one can spell Michalowicz. Go to mikemotorbike.com. It rhymes. All my books are there. You can learn from that. You can see what I do with my speaking career there. Maybe you can copy some ideas from my website too. And you'll definitely find it to be a different website, mikemotorbike.com.
Mike, man, I love this episode. Short, to the point.
I love it,
man. Thank you so much. Best of luck, brother.
Charles, thank you, brother.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.